Why is safety important? I visit a lot of churches, and I'll never forget attending a church in Southern California. This church knew what it was to have a safe environment for their kids. We went to the preschool area, and we were just visiting, but even as a visitor, we had to make sure we had our tag. You see, in order to get into the preschool area, they had a locked door with a security guard there. If they saw the parent tag, they'd let you in. If you didn't have it, you weren't even allowed back in the preschool area. How safe is that, right? And we weren't in a bad neighborhood. We were in a nice neighborhood, but they made sure that they had a safe environment. You walked inside. You walked down the preschool halls, and I could see volunteers all over the place. Happy parents with tags on them, kids with tags on them. We'd walk up to the room, and you'd see at least 2 volunteers, sometimes 4 or 5 volunteers in that room. And I noticed all over the place there was little signs reminding you of what their safety processes were. Not like in a rule number 1, rule number 2, but in just a fun way of saying, hey, remember your parent tag. That's the only way you get to get your child. Just fun ways that were interactive. And as I walked through there, I went, wow, this church gets safety. This church understands why safety is so important. I wish all churches were that way. They're not. But you know what? You can make it a point to make safety a priority at your church. So we're doing a 5-part series called Why Is It Important? Why is it important to have a safe environment for your kids' ministry? Safety is very important. And I want to take just a minute to encourage you. Are you taking the steps that you need to take to have a safe environment for your kids? We've been entrusted with these lambs, with these children that God's given us to look out for. And you have a responsibility as their leader, whether you're paid or not paid, whether you serve once a month or every single week, you have a responsibility to look out for these kids. So look out for them. Provide that safe environment. Make sure you've got safety protocols in place so that you're actually doing that you're actually doing what you say you're going to do. In fact, here's a couple of safety things that I think every church should have, and I would encourage you to do the same. The first one is this: never, ever, ever be alone with a child. You need to have a couple of volunteers in your room always. Don't take those kids until you have that second volunteer. We don't want you to be alone with a child for your safety and for the kid's safety. And you know what? The parents certainly appreciate it. When they walk in, they're evaluating you also. Secondly, have some sort of a bathroom policy. What does that look like for your church? Well, it could depend on what your church structure looks like, what your building looks like. But make sure you have a bathroom policy and you follow for those kids, because I promise you, kids are going to have to go to the bathroom. And finally, make sure you have some sort of a check-in and check-out process, some way that you're making sure the right kid goes back to the right parent every single time. And then make sure that you honor it. Make sure that if they don't have that parent tag, they got to show their ID, or they've got to go back and talk to a staff person. Have a process in place for what that's going to look like. You see, you have a responsibility to create that safe environment. It's so important that we do that, because as we do that, not only we're protecting kids, but we're helping kids feel safe, that they know that having a relationship with God is safe. The parents know they can bring their kids to church because church is safe. We live in a world that's not very safe. The safest place should not be the gym. It should not be a daycare center. It should not be a school. It should be your church. Safety is important. Hey, this is Pastor Tony reminding you to keep your kids' ministry fresh.